Hello everyone. I hope that you have all had really powerful weeks following on from the last video. Today I am going to be taking you through the third part of the series of separating from your ego. Following on from the really powerful work that we did last week, where we got really clear on what the decisions were that you made, that you have been identifying with as your life and as yourself. And today I want to talk you through, what do we do with that now that we can see it, and not just see it from our eyes, but see it from our whole being, experience it. Now that we can see it fully, what do we do with that? How do we take this new perception, this new insight, this new seeing and understanding of what has been living our lives, and make it into action? Because action is what makes change. And this is the part where we get to actively change our lives. You know, I think a lot of the time we get missold things, and it's given incorrect information. That by having these really amazing experiences or moments of insight, that changes our life, that's enough. But if we don't take this new perception, if we don't take the new seeing from these great experiences and then do something with it, it doesn't create anything. It doesn't make anything change. It just becomes a great experience that we had once, that we have a good memory about. The real powerful part is where we take what we can see and we make it into our real life. And this has to happen from you. Like, we have to be the ones that takes this and makes it into actionable change. I'm going to talk you through that in this video. First, I want to talk about, where does action come from? I think we are obsessed with taking action in this world. If we just do more, if we just do better, if we just do the right things, then maybe everything will change. But have you ever noticed or found yourself taking all these actions, but then ending up in almost the same experience every single time, just different details? A teacher of mine asked me once to explain to him what the difference was between change and transformation. And as I was thinking about the answer to that question, I realized change is like moving furniture around a room into different parts of the room and thinking that we're now in another room. But actually, it's the same room, it just looks different. Transformation is when we step into another room, when we're standing in a whole different place. Now that is exactly what we're doing here. The moment that we can see that the decision that we made once in a frozen moment in time was a decision and a story that we identified with, that became real and true for us. The moment that we can see that story as a story that has been unfolding and living our life, that we believe is us, the moment we can have that shift in perception, we have the opportunity to be standing in a different room, standing in a different space. before we could see it, we just thought that this was our life. We just thought that this was it, right? We didn't know there was a story and there was an us. We just thought that that's just the way it is. But now, with this insight, with this change in perception, we're standing in a new space. The moment that I could see the decision I made about I'm not worthy to be loved. The moment I made it mean, I made my mother's anger mean it's because I'm not worthy to be loved, then that absolutely impacted how I showed up in my life in every possible way, all coming from the same story. The moment that I'm able to see that gives me the opportunity to see that I may be not that. And opening up the question of, oh great, well who am I then? I need to take a pause because I want to turn this off. Because this was bringing. Okay, so what did I say to you before? It was really useful. And we were talking about it before.
Which one? When I sat outside?
When you were sitting there and I was explaining it to you. Okay, that's it. Okay. When we can't see the story as a story, when it is just us, when it is just our reality, the story itself has all the power. It has all the power that it is making our decisions, and it is causing us to react in certain ways, and causing us to take action in certain ways, and causing us to be certain ways. The moment that we can see it, we no longer are 100% in it, which means that we are gaining more power, which means the story itself has less power. Eckhart Tolle will say, the moment that we can see the mind, the moment we can see the ego, we are no longer the ego. Remember when I said to you in the last video that we have all the power? We have so much power that we can completely design our entire life based on this decision that we made in a moment in time. Well, now I want to bring that back to the forefront, because now that we can see what your story is, this is when we start getting power back. So as you're walking around in your life and you can see it occur, like let's say the bus driver shouts at you and you have a story of, I'm not safe. The bus driver shouts at you, instantly your body freezes up, and the story of, you see, you're not safe comes up. And what you would normally do is you would normally fight back and then get into an what's the word? Altercation. We should definitely do a blooping video. So your story is, I'm not safe. And so your body freezes up, and then you immediately want to react to the bus driver from your story of I'm not safe. And so you would normally get into a fight back, and you would get all gobby, and then you'd get into a conflict, and then you end up having a really crappy day after that. Now just imagine that that happens again now that you can see what the story is. Bus driver shouts at you. You're standing there. Ding, 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 I'm not safe, comes in. But this time, you watch it, and you go, there it is. Up, and there's the same feeling that comes through my body. Up, yep, I'm starting to hold my breath. But you know, watching it, that it is a story, and it is not you. It's also not truth. It's not connected to reality. It's not real and true. In that moment, as we practice this more and more, as we become more equipped of being able to watch the story with the understanding that it is a story, in that moment we have a pause. And in that pause is where all power lies. Because in that pause, we have the opportunity to choose to respond in a different way. Maybe this time, because you can see that I'm not safe is a story and not real and true. That you might be able to see that the bus driver is shouting because he's had a crappy day and that he's really overtired and that it has nothing to do with you. And you might stand there and instead of shouting back at him, you might smile and you might wish him well. And then you'll get on the bus and it will have no impact on you whatsoever. And you end up having an easeful, nourishing day. These tiny little changes are the very changes that change our life. We get to have the opportunity to show up in our life differently. Rather than reacting mindlessly and unconsciously to it, identified with the story, we can start to have more moments of pause where we can consciously choose to respond in a different way. Now, when my story of I'm not worthy of being loved comes up, I know it so well that I can see it come. And by the way, it does still come, but it doesn't have much power anymore. So I can see it come, and instead of reacting to it in the ways that I used to, now I just kind of sit next to it and go, there it is. And it kind of becomes like a fan going off in the background. And it doesn't have any impact on how I then decide to show up and what actions I want to take that day. 10 years ago, I used to be a professional singer. And my story had such a grip on me that I used to get panic attacks whenever I stood up to sing publicly. I used to get such strong panic attacks, and my story would feel so strong in my body that I would genuinely believe that someone in the audience was going to attack me or shout at me or berate me while I was standing on stage. And I would be so consumed with not enoughness that I just couldn't physically sing anymore. Nowadays, the fact that I'm sitting in front of a camera talking to you right now, the story might come and pop his head up every now and then. But I can still continue to talk to you while it's sitting there alongside me. Because I can watch it knowing that I have the understanding and the distinction that it is simply a story. It's simply a message or a noise or a moment in time that my mind identified with once. It doesn't have to have any power. It doesn't have to have any impact on how I then show up for the rest of my day. This is where we get to gain our power back. And remember how powerful we are. Remember that you were the ones that created your entire life once, identified with this decision. I think it's really important for me to say that we may still have the story pop up many, 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 many times. And at the beginning, as you're still practicing this and bringing this new awareness into your life, it probably will pop up. But it loses power. And eventually it loses so much power, it becomes like what I was talking about. Just like a fan in the background, while you carry on being you and all your awesomeness. So for you to take this and make this into action in your lives now. After this video, I want you to write down in a journal 3 or 4 different scenarios where your story or your decision has come up in your life recently, maybe in the last week since the last video. I want you to write it down where it has come up, where it has reared its head. And this time in your journal, rather than the usual reaction that you would normally have had because you thought that your story was real and true, I want you to write down different ways that you could respond. Like if your story is that you don't have a voice, or it's not safe to be you, which normally makes you shut down, avoid people, isolate, not speak, not share yourself, and then feel lonely, resentful, suppressed about it. I want you to write down in your journal, what is a different way that you could respond, knowing that that is just a story. Can you, instead of letting your body shut down and withdrawing, can you share yourself in that moment? Instead of isolating, can you go out and connect with someone? Instead of sabotaging and shutting down that dream project, can you take a risk and share it with 3 people? I want you to write down in your journals different scenarios that you could now make into real action if you were to stand outside of your story. And if you're going to do that for 3 or 4 things, imagine if you did that for the whole of your life. So now I feel like it's really important that I want to share a few points with you about this. As you're making these different actions, as you respond differently to how you have usually reacted to your stories in the past, it does not mean that you're not going to still get the emotional experiences. You are still going to get feelings that come up that feel uncomfortable. If your story is attached to feeling shame or fear or insecure or doubt, if your story is attached to feeling anything in your body that comes up at the same time, it is likely that you're still going to feel those same feelings as you take the new action. So I really want to highlight that is not wrong. It's safe for you to feel what you feel. Let the emotion move through you and trust that it will pass. At the beginning, when we're starting to create change, when we're changing habits and behaviors of a lifetime, it's not always comfortable. And sometimes it can feel messier before it gets easier. So I feel like it's really important that you know that as you go into your lives after this and you start really being courageous to respond differently, it's okay if you get wobbly about it. It's okay if it is not perfect and it is messy. It's okay that you make mistakes. It's okay that you don't get it all right. It's okay if you feel uncomfortable and you have uncomfortable emotions. It's all okay. That's how it's meant to be. And it will pass. And before you know it, it will become just second nature to you. When I started getting back on stage to speak publicly, at the beginning I would still get the same fear move through my body. But I just kept letting it come, knowing that it would pass, knowing that I don't have to identify with this story anymore. Now, over some time, I don't get that same experience. I don't get the fear move through me. Maybe I might get a little bit nervous, but nothing like it used to be. It takes time to create new behavior. So please throw out any expectation of instant fixes or this happening perfectly and instantly. Throw all that out. Let yourself muddle through this until it becomes just your new normal. And finally, don't do this alone. Share these things that you're going through with people that you love and you feel safe with. It's really powerful to share the changes that you're making with other people. It's also really powerful to be able to not hold it alone, because this stuff takes courage. So don't isolate yourself in this. Share it. Talk about it. Talk about it with curiosity, with non-judgment. Share it with other people who may be doing the same work as you. Share it as if you're on an adventure trying a new pathway, which you are. Don't do this alone. It's so much easier, so much more empowering, and it feels a hell of a lot better if you do this with people in connection. So I hope that's been really useful for you. Please share in the comments below of any big changes that start occurring for you in your life. Please share with me anything that starts to really transform. I really want to hear how all of this percolates and ripples through your life from this point forward. So thank you.